Sorry. Good evening, I'm Colin Colgan and you're welcome to the Business and Enterprise Show, Ireland's only live web-based business TV programme with over 2 million views in over 200 countries. And we're coming to you live from our state-of-the-art studios in the Cavan Crystal Hotel on the Dublin Road here in Cavan Town. Now, one of the other programmes that we do is the Green Room, and it's an entertainment programme and it is hosted by Mr. Cool himself, Paul Cox. Now, Paul is a little miffed with me at the moment because he's under the impression that I have secured an exclusive interview with the Pet Shop Boys. But you don't have to worry, Paul, I'm not stepping on your toes. It's not Paul Tennant or Neil Tennant from the supergroup of the 80s. It's actually Paul McCaffrey of the successful cross-border pet shop chain. Paul, you're very welcome to the programme.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, how did we get started into pet shop business? I doubt if when you're at school and you're asked by the careers master what do you want to do, he said, I want to have a chain of pet shops. So how did you get into it or drift into it?
I started working in a pet shop first of all, it must have been 15 years ago, and after maybe 8 or 10 years of being there and eventually managing the store, I decided I wanted to go out and just do it myself, and we started our own. Me and my brother-in-law, we were sitting over a bottle of vodka one night and we decided to start our own wee business and went from there.
The amount of businesses that have been started from drinking a bottle of vodka is huge.
Yeah.
So you started first in Enniskillen.
Yes.
Like when you say, right, I want to set up a pet shop, how did you go about it? What did you need to do before you could open the doors? Apart from get lots of money, I assume.
We started up, it was mostly pet food orientated. Just organising, ordering in, because there's that many different brands and varieties of foods that people want. And having a small sideline of the pets as well, with tropical fish, cold water fish, small animals, and a few reptiles. But we started up a big shop in Enniskillen and it just went from there really, it just snowballed.
How long are you in business?
5 years now.
5 years, so you would have started when, Ireland North and South were in a bit of a recession.
That's right.
And lots of things were being cut back.
Yes.
And I suppose one of the things that was being cut back on was how we looked after our pets. We stopped getting them the most nutritious food. We started going to Lidl for the cheap bag. People who were grooming their dogs once a month now kind of give them a quick wash at Christmas.
Yeah, no, you would think that, but a lot of pet lovers, most people would still, put even pet food would be above themselves sometimes, and it was busy from the start, thank God. There's always an opening for pet business. It's one of the biggest things after all people have got to eat. So I suppose all animals have to eat, and then different dog foods, even with different dogs and cats. Like we'll always get people coming in, and we have a large shop, and people still come in looking for the food you don't have because the dog only likes one variety, or the cat only wants one variety, or this only works for them, or. And you've got dogs and cats with sensitive, stomachs and might only want one certain type or be recommended some type because of a health ailment maybe. So there was always a market for it, but it was just what way we done it and how.
Now, when you said pardon all the food and the accessories, we'll come back to the accessories later, but you said you also have a small range of pets.
Yes.
Is that difficult? Because let's be honest, if you have a pet shop and you close the door at night when you finish at 6 o'clock and there's bags of dog food and things of accessories and
yes,
close up, and away you go. But if you kind of have live animals there, obviously it's not as simple as just kind of locking the door and going off.
No. Well, we'd keep the heating on for a certain length of time. We'd have all the small animals with hay so that be kept fed and watered. But their enclosures would be so that they wouldn't get out. But apart from that, they're handy enough kept. The only times maybe is Christmas Day and Boxing Day, or days where you'd still have to go down and feed and water. That'd be the only exception to the rule.
So you close up at 6 or whatever time you close up at, and then is there a ritual of going around feeding everybody, making sure that everybody has what they
just
have?
Before we close up, we'd have all the small animals. We'd make sure that they did hay if it was going to be a cold night, so that they can make their bedding out of it. The rest of the reptiles have all got heating, so they should be okay, and the fish as well, they'd be grand because the heating's already in place for them. So all in all, it's not a major amount to keep them, but as long as you keep on top of it, it'll be grand. And
again, I suppose something like, well, we're looking at kind of bad weather in the next couple of weeks. We've had floods in the past. ESB, or Northern Ireland Electricity, as I think they call it, north side of the world, sometimes that can be cut. Obviously, if it's just a business you have, these things happen. But obviously, we've got live animals there. If something like that happens, it's a case of all hands on deck and back to check on the store?
Oh God, yes. Just in case. Yeah, you couldn't be careful enough.
Now, when you think of small pets and kind of small animals and small dogs, do you go through a fashion, if you know what I mean? Like, can something become popular because it's seen with a particular actor or actress or in a particular film?
You will find people who go through fades.
When along Polly came along, did everyone come looking for weasels?
Yeah, like I said, and Pugs was a big thing after Men in Black. Everybody started buying them. But I think the general public's probably been re-educated lately, about the bonuses maybe of rehoming dogs and how important it is to rehome dogs, and sometimes they make better pets. In that pedigree dogs a lot of times have, because they're closely bred, sometimes they have a lot more problems and can be a lot more expensive with the vet maybe than Heinz 57, a different variety dog.
Yeah. Is that because they would have particular issues, or is it particular, like if you have a car and say you have a big Volkswagen Passat and you go to the mechanic and I need a set of brakes and he'll kind of do them for a couple of quid for you. You roll up in a BMW, he's a few quid, brakes, well, they're specialised brakes. So is it exactly the same with pets? If it's a pedigree dog, everything kind of goes up a little.
Not so much. You will find different dogs have different ailments, like large dogs, like maybe a German Shepherd or a Lab, sometimes have, before they're even bought, would be hip scored, and it's more or less because a lot of people know that the back legs or the joints might go in large dogs. Small dogs like a Chihuahua might have a heart problem, but certain breeds have problems.
So what would be the problem with Labradors?
I
may as well get a kind of a health pet check while I'm here,
Well, a lot of people will find that the Labs get arthritis and get bad hips, and sometimes you can find that whenever you're out walking them, you'll see them slowing up, and it's usually because of joints.
Okay, well, obviously, although they're both touching 10 now, that doesn't seem to be the problem. When we're out walking, the only person slowing up is me.
Not every dog will get it, but you would get the odd dog like that there. But they must be doing well if they're that age and they're still spitting.
Or maybe I'm just so bad.
You're doing something right.
Now, if somebody comes in looking for an animal, are they just sold, or is there some onus on you, we'll say, to check that he's going to?
Well, we don't sell to anybody under 16 as a rule. Unless anybody over 16, we ask them, and we would try to find out what sort of pet would suit them. We would probably tell them how long the pet could live for, the certain advantages and maybe disadvantages of having that pet, and then after that maybe let them think what sort of pet they want. All we can do is advise.
Yeah.
If we ever thought somebody was going to be bad with a pet, we wouldn't sell it.
But I suppose, like everything, and even at an interview with a job, everyone's on best behaviour. So it's kind of hard to figure it out,
Yeah.
Now, apart from the products that you sell, there's a couple of services you give out. One of them is grooming.
Yes.
Grooming, that's fairly specialised at this stage, you know.
It is.
It must be for certain dogs, right? Because I know some,
dogs,
obviously with labs, they don't need to be groomed. We have a collie who grooms herself. I don't mean she grabs a brush and kind of, but like if there's if you're going out in the morning and you kind of see some loose hair on her, you come back in the evening, it's gone, you know. So I don't know, maybe it's just the only female we have, so possibly she likes to keep after her appearance. But the little fella, the Westie, he takes a lot of grooming.
Yes.
You know.
Certain dogs, the coat will keep on growing. The thicker the coat, the more the dog's going to sweat. So grooming is big business, because obviously it'll take the coat off, it'll make the dog smell nicer, as well as for good reasons too. You know, in the summer, like a dog's coat for the winter would not be a dog's coat for the summer. So on a hot day, maybe I know we don't get many, but if it was 20 or 25 degrees, if you could imagine yourself in maybe a layer of a coat maybe 2 or 3 times the size of what you are, you could imagine how hot a dog is going to be. So the grooming side of it it's very popular, very busy. But the grooming side of it's not only the dog's coat, it could be the dog's nails. It's the cleaning of the ears, it's the cleaning of the anal glands. There's a few things which go with it as well, because dogs will get mites in their ears. Their nails
so
keep on
it's
growing.
medically as well as maybe paramedically, I should say, as well. So it's not just to make them look better. It's actually there's a health element to it as well. There's a health
element to it, yes. Yeah.
And is there special training, or is that something that you're going to pick up as you go along?
There is. It's the dog grooming industry isn't regulated at the minute. Anybody can do it, but my brother-in-law, who's also my partner in the business, he actually does it for ourselves, and he's had up to, I think it's 3rd or 4th level training on it. So he's well trained, and not only in the aspects of grooming, but also the aspects of health and safety. Do you know, if you see a dog doing badly, he knows what to do. Do you know, because for some dogs, not all dogs, it can be stressful. They're brought out of their natural environment to be groomed.
Yeah, I would say actually probably a lot of dogs would find it stressful, you know, because generally when you leave them there, you literally leave them there. So they're saying, oh, where's me on a going? You know, who's the strange person here? You know, so that kind of sets off a little bit of fear. It's a strange environment. And then there's somebody washing them, cutting them with the scissors. You know, so I'd say it's quite stressful on them. Yes. And I suppose if you had a dog that wasn't the most best behaved dog you've ever come across in your life, he could lash out. Or snap out even, you know.
So he could, it sometimes does happen. But thank God Raymond's been trained, so he would know what steps to take. And even things like, you know, it hasn't happened often, but there has happened sometimes where if a dog's too stressful, he'd say, you know, maybe only do a wee while now, leave the coat, come back in a few days, we can finish it off when the owner's about, or even have the owner stay and watch and maybe be able to calm the dog with Raymond. There's always a way around it, or there's always ways to cope with that.
Now you said they're not regulated dog groomers. Now I could take that's obviously north and south that they're not. Now you're kind of in a unique position, although the businesses are only half an hour away from each other or an hour away from each other. You straddle the border, and obviously the regulations change. From the entire business point of view, what differences have you noticed from a regulation point of view and from a business point of view? The advantages and disadvantages have been north and south.
I think in the south the pet regulations have to come up a wee notch, to be honest. In the north there is vets who come out and check any pet shop and see how they're doing. At the moment, anybody can open up a pet shop in the south and keep the animals whatever way they want to keep. And there's no one really to give a complaint to or say, you know, this is wrong or this has to change. In the north, there is a Department of Agriculture seems to be in charge of that. They would come out and check on your licence and be able to take your licence away if the pets weren't kept in a certain way, which is the way it should be.
But we'll say from setting up, and obviously, as it happens, your business is pets and pet products.
Yes.
But it's still a business with all that goes to it.
Yes.
So you have your VAT. Your VAT rates will be different, north and south. All your other regulations. Mm-hmm. Was it easier to set up in business, north or south?
To be honest, because I'd already been in the pet trade for maybe 10 years before that, I knew all the contacts already. So it wasn't as difficult as maybe somebody who's starting out on their own. I find it, because of the contacts, most people were able to put me in an account or work with me. Mm. So either side, I found both weren't too bad.
Yeah.
I didn't find
now, you have one set of suppliers. We'll say up north seems that's where you started, and you just carried the products down here, and that's...
No. A lot of the products would actually be from both north and south. Mm. It's a lot more expensive getting it from across the water. So if anything, like there's big companies like Red Mills or Gain, which are both southern based, which would do a lot with in Enniskillen.
Yeah.
And then vice versa, we would get a lot of our fish from a place called in Antrim. But they supply the whole of Ireland. They're the only place where they don't do all the fish. So any pet supplier would get from them.
Yeah.
But like any
How
business...
do you get fish delivered, by the way?
You would get them in polystyrene boxes, which would keep the heat in. That's for the cold water and the tropical. With more oxygen than water in a bag, believe it or not. And just be delivered within a time frame. You know, so the tropical fish don't cool down, and there's enough oxygen in the water to allow it to be delivered.
Yeah.
But you would get maybe 15 or 20 fish in a bag, and just whenever we get them in, we would go through a process of maybe putting the fish in for maybe 15 or 20 minutes in the same bag, and letting the two temperatures get the same, and then releasing them and putting water treatments in to calm them.
I'd never realised how, but thinking of it, you know, obviously, if somebody wants rabbits and that, somebody comes up with a cage, there's 3 rabbits, but obviously fish. Although I have this vague recollection of working for a company 20, God knows how many years ago, and although they delivered fish, live fish. Now it wasn't for pet shops; it was just so that Irish salmon arrived fresh in Germany, and it was a case that it was just a big tank on wheels. But it went from the factory in Ireland to the place in the UK or in Germany, wherever it was, and it was a one stop. But obviously, it was the pet shop.
Yes.
He delivers to you, and then if he's coming from north, he's probably maybe doing Cavan, and then he'd maybe going into Navan and around there. So, so each order, for want of a better word, is kind of somewhere in between, in their own little boxes, in their own little bags.
That's right. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Tropical fish, are they difficult to keep?
They aren't.
I know I didn't have much success with goldfish. Although when the kids, they had to be kind of almost in their 20s before they realised they didn't have the same goldfish that lived after 15 years. You know, they kind of when he was lying at the top of the water, you go off to school, I'll bring him to the vet. Came home, goldfish was swimming around. So it could be a great effect. You know, they didn't realise that it was actually kind of Bogart number 27 that was in the bowl. You know, but. Tropical fish, I assume they're in a different scale than we say your goldfish in your bowl.
They would be. Well, first of all, we'd see a lot of people coming in and sweating like you were. And it would have to be out of maybe a tank of 50 fish, it would have to be one fish and one fish only. But the
just before you give it to me, could you just cut off a little bit of his tail?
But no, the tropical fish, they can be a wee bit more difficult. I would be more a fan of the cold water fish in that they're easier kept.
Yeah.
And I often say to parents who come in with wee kids, because they're probably the easiest fish to keep. You know, as a first pet, I would always show them the hardier fish and say, if you don't want a wake or a funeral, these boys are probably your best bet. But the tropical fish, they are a wee bit harder kept, but if you follow a few wee rules, now the few wee rules might be just doing water changes on time, putting in certain water treatments on time, and maybe even getting the feeding right, because it's very important, you should be okay, and you should have a bit of luck with the fish.
Now, from a business point of view, what's better as a product? The actual animals, be they fish or small animals, or the feed and associated products?
To be honest, it'd probably be the feed and the associated products. With animals, because you've given them so much care and attention, you don't really make any money in them. By the time we have fed them and changed the bedding and done certain things.
Yeah, if you went to a wholesaler, got 10 bags of dog food and they're sitting up on the shelf for 3 weeks, your margin is still there. If you bought 5 rabbits, they've eaten your profit margin.
Yeah. So the pet side of it for ourselves is small. We'll always keep pets. Yeah. And it's great to see the kids come in and having a look at the pets, even if they're not buying and being,
I suppose it attracts people in. Look, in the same way there used to be a pet shop in Dunshaughlin when I'd be driving out to Dublin to see it, and they had a whatever's bigger than a parrot in a big cage just outside, and if you were passing by, everybody stopped, have a look at it, and then you ended up walking in. Yeah. And invariably you bought something. So I suppose the parrot was the best salesman, Yeah,
it does help. But we'd be the same, all the pets, we've a couple of lizards there, bearded dragons. If the kids come in, usually we try and feed them. Bearded dragons, they only know that their food is there by movement. So crickets, we put in live crickets, and you'd see them running about, and if cricket stops, they'd stop and they'd watch him until he moves, and then they'd eat him. So we'd always try and feed those sort of pets, whenever there is kids about. But
do you not check first, just in case the kid has a pet cricket at home?
Oh, no. We should do, maybe.
Now, another thing with generally with small dogs, and I think it's an absolutely appalling craze, is the clothes for the dogs.
Yes.
There was some pet program on I think it was RT, one of the big stations anyway, and it one of the things was the competition for well-dressed animals, and they looked so sad in them, but I have seen a huge range of clothes. I just assumed a few crackpots bought them. Cats and Dogs, if you remember that film. The little old lady at the end who wrapped the bad cat in her. I assumed it was somebody like that. But just looking at the range of clothes that there is for dogs, obviously it's quite a big market.
Yes, it's pretty big. All right. We'd do a pretty big range of it ourselves. To be honest, we're not as probably popular as maybe the cities are. People would come more in because of reasons like rain or to keep the dog warm. But there has been one or two fancy ones we've had to sell, and people have come back with football tops for dogs not so long ago, and they went pretty good. And then we've all weather ones or whatnot.
What football team was it for? Rovers?
We had a few of the Premiership. We had Arsenal, Chelsea, United, and Liverpool, and but you'd find couples bickering too. Whenever they came in and they'd be saying, "I'm not putting them in that." Where's this other one? I'm not putting them in that. So
So you've two stores at the moment, one in Enniskillen and one in Cavan. Mm-hmm. Any plans for expansion?
Not at the moment. We're seeing how both stores go.
Yeah.
And maybe you wouldn't know in a few years' time, but at the minute we're happy where we are.
Yeah, and again, people can see there from the screen there, the jacket is Pet Shop Boyz. Even the name itself, is a play on the band, and there's lots of merchandising. So you're really promoting the brand. It's not just Park's Pet Shop,
Yeah.
You really have a brand behind it.
Yeah.
And is that something that you want to push?
Oh yes. Well, if anything, if it gets right there and gets no one, I think we can kind of keep up with the name because it was straight to the point, so we would be recognisable. But it all helps.
You didn't get a phone call from anyone's lawyer in the UK?
No,
using their name or something,
no,
you know?
No, Simon Kyle hasn't rung me either. He wouldn't, trust me.
Now, so would you expand if at this moment expanding the number of shops? If that's not kind of on your immediate plan, is there a plan to extend the range that you have?
Well, we do,
including extra services.
Currently, we've got the full downstairs of our unit in Mine Hall. There's about 3,000 square foot, but there's also a chance to go upstairs. So whenever we get a wee bit busier, we were thinking of making the upstairs a wee bit bigger, and maybe extending maybe even pets, or a lot more of a range, even in fish. The minute we've something like 9 120 litre tanks, I'd like to get more even after that. Maybe even go into the likes of marine fish. The minute we do freshwater fish, which is tropical, but the marine would be, like Nemo or saltwater fish, which would be nice as well.
Yeah.
But maybe just diversifying maybe as well.
And how do people find out about you?
At the minute we're on Facebook. We're Pet Shop Boyz Cavan. We are as well.
I don't know where you are in Enniskillen.
Yes.
But where you are in Cavan, like you're passing. You're not on Main Street. You are in.
Yes,
one of the industrial areas, nearly, if you to use that.
We are.
Term loosely,
That's right.
So you're not going to get passing trade. So it's important that people know this is where we are and this is what we do. So how do you get that word out? What's your trick?
At the minute we've got big signs. We're in Unit 5, Mine Hall, so we are, which is in beside Clark's Cavan. Erica's Fashion Budget Tiles. So we're in a large unit. So we are. We are a wee bit off the road, but we've got big signage at the front.
Yeah.
And it is noticeable from the Ballinar Road. So.
And are you a big fan of Facebook? Do you find Facebook drives people in the door?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people using Facebook. We have done a wee bit of advertising on Facebook, and it has came back. So it does help. I think anything would help, especially when you're starting up. So anything's a great help.
And of course you do leaflet drops, because that's actually where I came across you.
That's right.
You had a leaflet in the Bailborough Library, so I assume you just didn't pick the Bailborough Library. I assume you had these leaflets everywhere.
We do.
You didn't kind of have a quick look and say, pet lovers in Bailborough, I'll leave these here,
Yeah, no, we handed out. We tried to put leaflets everywhere.
Yeah.
Probably because it's a cheap way of advertising too, and places like waiting rooms or libraries or something where somebody might just pick up and have a wee look.
Yeah.
Always are ahead as well.
Do you do competitions or anything like that?
We were thinking of doing a Facebook competition, and we're going to be doing that soon in Northern Sound, and possibly putting a competition out in it as well. So, but it's all just in the pipeline. I'm hoping for the. Maybe next week or the week after. Yeah, it's the second week of February. Hopefully, in Northern Sound, that's going to go out.
Yeah.
So hopefully, it'll just snowball.
Now you say next week it's February. Is there a season, we'll say, for your, or is it constant? We'll say for the 12 months. Are you busier in the summer or in winter, or what way does it work?
Different products sell at different times. You're right. In the winter time, wild bird food's a big thing. In that, a lot of people feed the wild birds in that. Because the ground is frozen, they can't get any worms or whatnot. Peanuts and wild bird food itself. You'd also find in the winter, because some dogs are outside, a lot of dog bedding itself, and a lot more dog food would sell because the dog's getting it harder to keep himself warm. In the summertime, you'll find something like wee small animal pets like rabbits or guinea pigs would sell. The kids would be in, so you might have a few more dog treats selling. So it can be seasonal, like you say. Usually our quieter times actually just April, May and June. They'd be quieter months, but winter's summertime, even the autumn are busy months for ourselves.
So you're busy all year round. It's just that some products change.
Different. Yeah, that's right.
Well, Paul, thanks very much for coming in and telling us all about the exciting world of pet shops. It's many a time I've been on the other side of the counter, but at least now I know what it's like from your side of the counter. So you might just tell our listeners how they can talk to you, how they can get through to you, and what you do.
No problem. We are on Facebook, Pet Shop Boyz Cavan, all one word. or we can find us in 5 Moyne Hall Retail Park. It's just beside Clark's Gavin or Erica's Budget Tiles. Our phone number is 049 436 5442. Give us a call.
Give him a call. You can't do better than that. So that was Pádraig McCaffrey of Pet Shop Boyz with an Z at the end. So Pet Shop Boyz with an Z at the end. So that is the end of this week's programme. As I said, you have been watching the Pet Shop Boyz, and I have been Colm Colgan. And as always, we have broadcasted you live from our state-of-the-art studios here in the Cavan Crystal Hotel. So do tune in next week when we'll have another guest talking about their business. Good night.